When it comes to weapons and how effective they are, people usually associate certain aspects to them to figure out if they're good or not. Luckily, post the recoil changes, most weapons in Tarkov can be effective in taking down bosses and other players alike. But what separates weapons and obviously the attachments on offer, but also the ammo and magazines that are used. 5.56 and 5.45 are always going to be relevant in some regard because of how many choices for ammo there are, as well as high capacity magazines to boot. SMGs have almost no recoil, high fire rates, and again, high capacity mags, which makes them a force to be reckoned with in close quarters, with the exception of maybe the 45 Vector, but oh well. One caliber that wasn't spoiled for choice in this department was 308. With only having 9 weapons that are not bolt actions, only one of them had a magazine capacity higher than 30, which was the FAL. Most other offerings are stuck with a paltry 20 round capacity. Well, they were until recently. With the addition of the SIG Spear, alongside it came 2 additional magazines into the game, another 20 round mag and a bigger 25 round mag. 5 rounds doesn't sound like a huge deal when we have 50, 75, and 100 round drum mags already in the game. Who cares? I'll tell you, 3 of the most powerful, popular, and sought after weapons in the game. So let's talk about these weapons and how one magazine changed the game for the 308 caliber in Tarkov. The AR-10 7.62 by 51 Lancer 25 round mag was introduced with the Spear. At first glance, I was kind of confused by why this mag, seemingly was designed specifically for the Spear, was also compatible with some of the 308 options in the game. But looking at the full name now, it makes 100% sense. This isn't a mag for 6.8 Creedmoor, it's for 3.8 and happens to work with both calibers. I'm not a weapons and ammo buff, so people who are more educated on the matter will hopefully explain in the comments to enlighten us all. But when I saw that the 308, MDR, SR25, and the RSAS could all be fitted with this magazine, I had a feeling this was going to be a rather large shakeup, and I believe I was correct in that prediction. All those 308 weapons listed before only had a mag capacity of 20 rounds, which is a lot of lead to be spewing at someone, but when compared to other calibers and how they have 3 times that amount, it makes sense why this caliber's biggest drawback for the specific weapons were the mags. Sure, the FAL has 30 and 50 round mags, but for the longest time up until the recoil changes, that gun was extremely difficult to make work. And also, the RFB could also use the FAL 30 round mags too, but that gun was limited in the number of attachments it has. But all the DMRs in the game that we know and love, that are highly modular or just have incredible stats, all had a hard limit of 20 round mags. That was their biggest downside. You had to make sure your shots were solid, otherwise those 20 rounds would dry up very quickly. But now, those guns have a new option that is just objectively better if you're trying to min-max those weapons. Again, 5 rounds doesn't sound like a lot, and you're probably thinking that I'm being a little bit pedantic about how big of a change this one mag brings to Tarkov. But if you would, think about it this way. Depending on which 308 weapon you use, that's an extra 5 rounds of potentially upwards of 70 penetration coming at you if we're talking about M993, especially considering that the 308 MDR can be put in full auto, making it even scarier than something like the SR or the RSAS. But regardless of which weapon you decide to use, these powerful options only get better once you unlock the 25 round mags at PK level 4. For only having a -3 ergonomics penalty and a still very low chance of misfiring, there is pretty much no downside to using these primarily as your go-to mags for 308. Getting them takes a little while, but the Tarkov community is a dedicated bunch, so with time you will get there eventually, and you'll be able to reap the rewards of these mags. It still blows my mind that for years this caliber was handicapped because of low mag capacity, such a strong and consistent round that has never really gotten the hammer, with the one exception of the massive nerfs to M6 2 years ago from 54 to 44 pen. That was felt across the game. But other than that, even to this day, people like to talk bad about M80, but 80 damage and 41 pen is nothing to scoff at. People will say that you have to use M62s because they're better, but 79 damage and 44 pen isn't enough of a change to warrant using them consistently, especially considering how much more expensive they are compared to M80. because the difference doesn't pass the 50 penetration threshold. It's not a noticeable enough difference to use them over M80. Unless you're using something like a bolt action and you want the tracer component to help you with your aim, then of course use them. But the fact that you can get an extra 5 rounds of this caliber for a few weapons makes them that much more lethal than they already were. And the color of the mags, not that this matters one bit, is a nice off green, allowing for some cool builds with the RSAS and the SR. Because at the end of a wipe, all we have are aesthetics and fashion. Here are a couple of off-meta examples for the RSAS and SR25, looking good and still being very effective at what they do. Regardless, these mags have made a huge splash across the game. You see anyone this late in the Tarkov still playing and running a 308 weapon, chances are they have these mags with them. At least one, because 5 extra rounds goes a very long way with potentially making the difference between killing someone for juicy loot or going back to your stash completely empty-handed. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Let me know in the comments down below your success with these mags, whether or not the extra 5 rounds have saved your life before, and be sure to subscribe for more videos about attachments that may seem rather insignificant, but have a massive long-standing effect on the game down the line. I hope to see you in future ones.